Hello and welcome back for another week of Sambo iRacing. We are back at Magny-Cours racecourse in the Formula Ford for yet another track guide. If you are new to my channel, what we do is a hot lap and breakdown, and we're back in the cockpit one final time the driving line on. Brake bias is set to 56%, and this is a very tricky track, which means if you practice it, it'll be absolutely wonderful to race on because you will just stream away from the rest. Right, without further ado, let's start the lap. Okay, let's start the hot lap. So this is actually starting just before we get onto the main straight. I'm in third, going through this final chicane. You want a nice wide exit, and then just drive down here. There's no off track, and it's a bit of butt kicker. It's a lovely massage chair. But absolutely flat through turn 1 and turn 2. Once we go past the apex to turn 2, lightly on the brakes, trail it off. I have a little bit of a slide there. It's absolutely fine. Pick up the gas in 4th gear, exit nice and wide, get back over to the right hand side. Really long straight here. Don't be fooled into going over to the left. Now we start moving over to the left. We're looking for the 100 meter mark. I'm going to brake quite hard. I pull that speed off all the way down to 2nd gear. Back on the gas at the apex. Now we're over to the right and then cutting back across over to the left. It actually just straightens the track. We're looking for the 50, that's when we're going to turn in. At the first apex, I do a tiny little lift, tiny little one again there. Now braking quite hard, up to about 80%. Really tricky corner, turn 9, down to 2nd gear. You can already see the marbles there. I've been in the kitty litter. Very similar chicane here, but we're going to do slightly bigger lifts at the 50, lift. Back on the gas, lift again for the 2nd apex, back over to the left-hand side. Just before we get there, we're going to brake quite hard again, up to about 80%. Trail it off down to 2nd gear, back on the gas. It's got one final corner to come after this kink, and it's a tricky one. So, we're looking for the 50 meter, or just before the 50 meters, down to 3rd gear. Little correction there, cost me about half a tenth. Still allowed me to nail the final chicane and open across the line in a 138.549. As I say, tricky technical track, but it should mean that anyone practicing gets a big leg up next week. All right, breakdown lap. As I say, we want a nice wide exit from the final corner. Just drive straight down the middle of this. We're going to start our turn in at the end of the rumble strip. Flat through here, just cutting the corner. Again, cutting the corner of turn 2. And once we get through there, we're going to straighten up the wheel, lightly go on the brakes up to about 35%, and then we're going to long trail it off. I have a little bit of a correction, but it doesn't actually cost me anything. Drop it down to 4th, and if you look, get back up, and then a tiny little lift, and then back on the gas straight away. We're wanting to get our right-hand tyres as close as we can over there. Just holding it. Now we're just trying to do as little steering input as possible. We're going to be heading over to the right hand side just to cut this corner a bit. And then back over to the left. So braking marker, you can just see coming up on the left there, the 100 meters. And they've handily drawn a nice little line on the grass here at the 100 meters. So just before we get there, we brake all the way up to nearly 100%, wiping all that speed off. Down through the gears, trail it off down to the apex here, down to 2nd gear. Once we get to the apex, we're getting back on the gas, so up to about 2/3 pressure, and then straight up to 100 as soon as we can open the steering wheel a tiny bit. Nice wide exit. This obviously is using the track conditions for this week, so it is a little bit warmer than last season. Right, we're going to start our turn in at the 50, coming up on the left here. We do a turn in, we're still flat, still flat, still flat. We get to this apex. I do a tiny, tiny little confidence lift straight back up to 100, and then the same here, just as I'm sliding off the curb. Do another little lift before then getting back up to 100. Then we're going to start our braking just now, so just before we get to the end of the rumble strip on the right-hand side. And again, we're going to try and straighten the wheel as much as possible because we don't want to have too much lock-on when we're hitting up to 80-90% brake pressure. We're going to tiny little lock up on the front left there, trailing it off. We drop it down to 2nd gear, and then we start getting back on the gas, trying to be as smooth as possible. We get back onto 100% just as we come off the curbing. Very easy to go into the gravel trap on the left. So same with this chicane. We're going to start, this is the 50 line coming up on the left-hand side here. So we're going to start our turn in. We do a lift before the apex this time. And then we jump back on the gas. And then we're going to do another lift before the next apex. Really taking some curb there. Then we get back up to 100% nice and early. We want to go back over to the left-hand side of the track to open up turn 14. And as soon as we've got that wheel straight, as you can see, as soon as I straighten the wheel, so when I get on the brakes, almost up to 80%. Again, drop it down to third, trail it off. Can get closer to the apex there, but I don't actually like hitting that inside curve on this one. And then once we go through the apex, we're getting back on the gas, open the steering. And then we contemplate this final corner, which is a very tricky, slippy little sausage. So we go through the 100, but just before the 50, we're braking here, wiping all the speed off, go up to 80%, down to third gear. Now, as you can see, I had to do a little correction because I just clipped that corner. It just sent the car, so little correction, but I'm straight back on the gas at 100%, so it didn't actually cost me too much. We want a nice wide entry into the chicane here. We just do a lift, get back onto 100%, and then we're clipping both corners before running across the line. So that is the breakdown lap. We have one final version coming up now with the driving line on without me talking. Enjoy.